Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I know we're competing with a very coveted panel with La Liga on the other stage, so thank you for being here. Let me take this opportunity to welcome you all and introduce our very, very global panel talking about technology in Asia. So why don't we do a round of introductions starting from you, Shahrukh?
Thank you, Shifa, for having us here. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Shahrukh Sohail. The last 14 years, I've been working on sports marketing, and the commercial side with football. Spent some time in the UK as well, where I worked at Crystal Palace and Coventry United. Now here in the one of the fastest growing markets in the world. Exciting time to be in Riyadh and looking forward to the World Cup in 10 years. It's going to be a long journey, but worth it everywhere.
Thank you. Jess?
Yes, thank you. My name is Jess Madsen. I am a former neuroscientist who ended up working in a football club, FC Copenhagen, and I recently joined SPL as the Director of Football and Data Science.
Hello, it's a pleasure being here with all of you today. I'm Íñigo Bonilla. I'm Senior Client Partner at Sportian. I've been working in sports for almost a decade now with multiple organizations, and I was one of the first attendees at the first edition of World Football Summit, so I can proudly say that I'm in the 24th edition this year, so it's been quite a journey, and looking forward to discuss with you a lot of topics.
Hello all, my name is Majdi Allulu. I'm the founder and CEO of Gurntify. This is my second year with WFS. I was back in Jeddah last year. Looks amazing this year, so thank you so much. So Gurntify is the largest talent discovery platform in the Middle East. We provide players with the tools, technologies, and enable them with what they need to make their dreams come true.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, before we get into specific stories, I think it would be great to unwrap what we mean by technology. And, you know, all of us sit in different parts of the value chain when it comes to using technology in sport. Jess is on the other side, you know, utilizing technology at SPL. So why don't you take a minute and, you know, help us understand what areas of sport in Asia are you seeing adopting what kind of technology, and where is technology being adopted the fastest? Shahrukh, you want to go ahead?
I want to go further. This is a very wide-ranging question. I'm sure my other panelists can chip in as well. So for me, I think when I used to hear about this AFC slogan, I had it for the longest time, which was the future is Asia. And I think that is a statement that exemplifies what Asia is. So we're talking about a continent that has over 4.6 billion people. And Asians love their sport. You know, it can be football, it can be cricket. Whether you are in Riyadh, with Al-Awwal Park, you'll see 25,000 fans there. You go to Indonesia and Jakarta, you'll see 80,000 fans come out. You even go to other lesser known parts, Pakistan, you'll see 25,000 people come and watch their favorite sports. So the size of the audience means, for me, fan engagement is where technology and optimization is where really it's at. And I think the way that this has been progressing, I was recently reading a very interesting Deloitte report stating that 40% of the vast majority of the Gen Z audience we have is interested in AR experiences, and that will motivate them, or they'll be more eager to watch their favorite sports. Similarly with VR experiences, where the number goes up to 54%. And funnily enough, well, I'm not in the Gen Z category, but all of us, I'm sure, are guilty of the fact that we will use a second screen every time we are consuming sports, right? It may be a 90-minute match, maybe a bit more, but we are interacting with technology in a very different manner now. So whether we're sitting at home, whether we're in the stadium, the adaptation and the use of technology is very widespread. So I think that technology is universal. The applications of it are universal, and the way that it's changing the sport that we all love is absolutely fantastic.
Thanks. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Jess, but let's go to Íñigo and get his perspective.
I think there is a strong appetite related to performance and talent identification. So at Sportian, we've been engaging with multiple leagues, clubs, and federations in Asia, and all of them are saying the same. So they want to find solutions who can help them to perform at their best and to identify talent. So they are starting from the grassroots to the elite level, but all of them sharing the same vision. So what kind of technologies can support them in terms of players tracking, eventing, and that kind of stuff to collect data from the players and to achieve better results. So I think that's one of the main trends I've seen so far in Asia. Obviously, then we will talk about fan engagement, content, and so on, but I think it's one of the market trends.
What
I
about you?
can't agree more. I think using tech in sports has a lot of different applications, but from the area that we are in, when it comes to talent identification, I think using technology in the past few years has been massive. Introducing wearables and AI and cameras and whatnot, I think it helps a lot those young talents to showcase what they do, and the trends and the different solutions that are out there right now, it's just crazy. So I think, yeah, in Asia and Middle East specifically, using of technology in that domain has been great.
Now, what about you, Jess?
Well, so I think from a performance perspective, the question is always, how can this technology help me win my next match? That is the basic question that everyone would be asking. That's the reason why you do it. And I think one of the issues, because all of the SPL clubs are, of course, they know about this and they want technology, but it is in some ways a challenge, because we are at a time now where we are very developed, we're very complex in data analysis, and some of the clubs actually just have to get started with tracking systems, event data, and then the question becomes, where do you start? What is the most basic thing you can do? And so because you can do AI models of where's my next signing coming from, but it might be better just to have a basic analysis of your tracking from your GPS systems. But you have both options right now. So I think my responsibility and my job in the SPL is make sure that the basic infrastructure is there so that the clubs can learn how to use this data in a way to increase performance. Because I'm not sure that you're increasing performance with AI models of scouting when you don't have a solid, baseline understanding of the tracking and the performance levels in the SPL.
Got it. So that's the focus for SPL right now.
Right now it is, yes.
Understood. Understood. Now, I do have, all of you have had experience in the European markets and, global markets. Íñigo, Jess, you were in Copenhagen, Shahrukh with yourself. Could you help us compare and contrast how technology has been used and where technology is currently, where it stands today in Europe and where Asia stands, and how much room is there for in Asia to adopt more technology?
I think, to Jess' point, he just spot on. So we have examples in Europe. For example, we are working with Belgium Pro League, that it's not one of the largest leagues in Europe, and they started their project similar to yours. So they started providing to all the clubs with the same tools for performance-wise. So all of them, they are using our performance tool, and they've been able to analyze in real time the performance of all the different players within the league. They can compare with other players. They have in a single platform eventing, tracking all the different sources of data, so all the teams can take the same decision. So it doesn't matter if you are playing like in the first division or in the second division, if you are winning the league or if you are like in the 12th position in the stand, then you have the same tools, and this is enabling all of them to compete with the same tools. If we talk, for example, about the Spanish league, now obviously there's another talk happening at the same time, but Javier Tebas can share the same. All the teams within La Liga in first and second division are using exactly the same tools. So Real Madrid is using the same tool, like Racing de Santander, that is playing in the second division. So I think that's the pathway, and it obviously takes a lot of time for the clubs to learn about the use of these technologies, because in Asia most of the clubs, they have very lean teams, so they need to first to understand the importance of using the right data to achieve the right results, and then after that you can start implementing solutions. But you can start with very basic stuff, as Jess mentioned, and then keep scaling those projects to implement more complex technology.
Yes.
I would like to add and sort of flip the question as well. We know that there are solutions pretty much for every area within sporting organizations. But is this a philosophical question, or is this a technology question? I think before we get to what product to use or how we will upscale or how we meet the baseline that we have in Europe, it's very important for any sporting organizations to adapt their way of thinking. I mean, data-based decision making genuinely means that you look at all aspects of data before you make those decisions. So I think getting a buy-in and then transforming your entire organization is very important. And to be very fair, we have this comparison between Asia and Europe. Europe has had a very massive head start in a lot of these areas. But I think Asia has the potential to catch up. This is where the future lies. And I think once organizations start thinking strategically about this and transforming themselves as a whole, which doesn't only mean sports analysis, but you cover all of the areas that you have within an organization, I think Asia can pretty much catch up with Europe in the next couple of years or decades as well.
Well, thank you so much. I'm just gonna, change the track a little bit, and since we are on a technology panel, we cannot not talk about the AIs of the world. So, how do you think artificial intelligence and maybe Gen AI specifically is being adopted specifically in the Asian region by different leagues, clubs, broadcasters? What do you see? What are the most useful or low-hanging fruits when it comes to AI use cases?
So, and I'll take it from the industry that I'm in. So I'll leave the the clubs and federation to the team. I think AI is a big word. People get scared of AI. Everybody's talking AI, but I think in our domain, when it comes to talking to these very young talents and very young kids, they don't understand what we're talking about. So although AI is important, although we are trying to use it in different tryouts and different events, and it kind of helps us narrow down the selections of people that we want to look at. It's important. We use it in different projects, but at the end of the day, I think it comes back to seeing these players play on ground, being assessed by real professionals, and it doesn't matter how good these reports are. It all goes back to the different methodologies, different processes, different teams take to make a decision of when or how to scout the next big talent.
I think AI can play a role in all the different areas within a sport organization. If we talk about fan engagement, for example, it's enabling the sport organizations to take data-driven decisions. So you can offer to the fans exactly what they are willing to receive from your side. So and then, for example, in our case, we are going a step further in terms of, for example, supporting the clubs with a new tool that is called dynamic pricing. So we are using AI to analyze what should be the most accurate pricing based on different aspects. So if the team is performing well, probably you can raise a little bit the prices. If the team is playing on a Saturday or on a Sunday or on a Friday evening, the price should be completely different. If you are playing, for example, in Christmas, in the English Premier League, it's quite popular the Boxing Day, so everyone is going with the kids, so the pricing should be different. Then if you are playing Champions League or if you are playing the league, depending on who you are playing against with. So all this kind of data needs to be analyzed, and with AI, it can provide you with the most accurate pricing. So you can increase the revenue streams for the organization because you can have always the stadium full. You can maximize the revenues because you can increase the price of the tickets or reduce the price of the tickets or do group sales or whatever. So I think AI is playing a key role as well in performance, as we discussed. So it's a very broad topic, and we need to discuss more in detail where it's playing.
Yes, I also think that AI can go from recommendation systems on Netflix to the production of Van Gogh paintings, and the way I see it, that AI is part of just the way statistics work nowadays and the knowledge we have of mathematics. And of course, AI will just be implemented in it. There's no way around it. But the way I think about it and the way I like to use AI is that I don't want AI to give me answers. I want it to help me find answers. And I think that's very important because most clubs, you have great coaches, you have great scouts, you have all of these things that just have know-how, and you don't want to take away their responsibility and their
100%.
knowledge, but you might want to help them do these things in a more efficient way so they can use their knowledge. And that, for me, that could be the biggest issue if we start to replace human knowledge with AI and not just make the human knowledge, more feasible and easier to use. That's what I want to achieve with AI. Yeah.
I think that AI as a whole, this is part of a wider debate about the implications of AI as a whole. And I think my take on this is that the rate of obsolescence of technology within AI is so high that it's very hard to sit here and predict what AI is going to look like in 10 years. I mean, look what the journey we've covered in 2 years. I mean, it's transforming the way we engage with fans. We are able to do personalization at scale. I mean, this wasn't possible before, but 10 years later, we would be having a very drastically different conversation, I feel, given how fast things are moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can end with the panel with, if you had a crystal ball kind of a question. But before we do that, I think I want to spend a little bit time on with each of you individually, talking specifically about the use cases that your companies are solving. Maybe, we'll start with Majdi, from Greentify's perspective. How is technology advancing athlete scouting? Could you share us any examples of, where your technology has successfully helped clubs and develop talent from the grassroots level?
Yeah, I think when we started Grintify, like back 5 years ago, there was really no use of tech and scouting in the region. I would say in Saudi. Let me just not say that. So I do believe that the products that we have developed kind of help clubs in the first place and help kids from different locations get real opportunities for them to showcase what they're capable of. And I don't think it was going to be feasible without using technology, whether it was Grintify or not. Saudi or the region is very big. It's very massive. The fact that the possibility of a team trying to find a very good talent from these very remote areas was almost impossible. With using technologies, teams right now from across Saudi can just with a one click of a button look at all these different players from different territories, from different locations, different behaviors, different types of play, and they can communicate with them and ask them to try out further. At the same time, for the players had no means of going to Al Hilal, going to Al Ittihad, going to for different clubs. Right now, all what they have to do is make sure their profile, make sure that they're getting rated, participating in games that have AI cameras and whatnot, so their performance is perfectly analyzed. So the data is kind of sent to these clubs and scouts, and then yet they have opportunities. We're very proud here at Grintify that we've helped over 500 players sign with different leading clubs in the region. We gave over 20,000 players real opportunities to try out in front of leading clubs. And I think without using technology, this would not have been possible at all.
Yeah. Let me ask you a slightly flip the question and ask you what's the biggest challenge for the adoption of technology that Greentify has developed? Where do you see challenges and like resistance in adopting, or like what's the stumbling blocks for you?
So I think back to one of your questions, I think this domain back in Europe is way more advanced than us here. So it took us some time to kind of educate the market, educate the clubs, the importance of using such technologies, and I think we succeeded to do so. At the same time, I do believe that we are talking to very young people, so they don't understand the terminologies that we talk about. So the simpler you make it seem to these kids, the easier for them to use. And obviously, the simpler the product that you introduce, make the whole thing just that much simpler.
Yeah. No, I think you've succeeded because, we have a booth here, and when I was talking people through a solution, they're like, oh, can this be used for scouting? So there's definitely a lot of appetite for solutions for scouting good talent. So
definitely. I wish Grintify was back in the day when I was playing, because I think I would have got a chance.
Yeah. Super. So, coming to Íñigo, you're with Sportian, you've spent your, career in different organizations, and, it's a more global organization. So, help us understand, where you're seeing the most appetite or take-up of technology in Asia, and maybe help us through some examples or successful case studies in the region.
No, as I said before, I think there is a strong appetite related to talent identification, to performance and so on, but I think I will talk today about a different topic that is extremely important in Europe, and I think it's going to be important in a couple of years here in Southeast Asia, and it's related to content protection. If you are reading the news lately in the sports industry, there's a lot of things going on. For example, in France a few weeks ago in terms of piracy, and there's the sport organizations are investing heavily now in Europe, and I think in the US as well, to avoid this kind of situation. So they are investing in content protection tools to identify pirates that are streaming their content for free, because at the end of the day, one of the most important areas for a sport organization is the media rights. And if the rights are like having less value in the market because the broadcasters are not willing to pay those amounts of money for the media rights because the people can consume the content for free, then they are in big danger. So now they are investing heavily in these kind of tools. We are working obviously closely with La Liga. We have started working with Lega Serie A in Italy as well in the same direction because for them their content is key to success. So they are protecting their content, and I think this is something that is going to happen anytime soon in Asia Pacific because there are multiple piracy sites and the people is trying to avoid those kind of things. And I think it's extremely important for the success of the leagues. And now, for example, in the case of Saudi Pro League, that is a league that is growing extremely fast. Probably their media rights will be significantly higher in the next couple of years, so they will start protecting their content, similar with AFC and so on. So I think this is something that we will see coming to the region anytime soon.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think Europe is very, very ahead in terms of content protection. But I want to touch base on a little bit of a different aspect. Asia is a very culturally diverse market, and when we produce content, the Saudis like to watch content in a certain way. The Indian market is different. The Japanese market is different. So maybe Shahrukh, you could help us get more color on how are we, how are leagues, we talk about globalization of sports. How are leagues becoming global but yet preserving the local aspect of sport?
I think all of this ties in very well with understanding your fans, right? If you understand you have a global product, you got to tailor it for the different audiences you're consuming and you're interacting with. So a lot of times you will see content being localized in terms of languages, content being localized in terms of geographies, and I think this is where AI can play a very important role, because content personalization at scale, if you're dealing with, let's say you're at the Premier League, or we hope to see the Saudi Pro League in a situation where it's dealing with 200 markets, so localizing content at that scale is quite a challenge, right? And this is where AI can come in. It can help diversify your match highlights into different segments that you can put out. It will help you along the cultural and language barriers. So I think disruption has happened over the last few years. You don't need a massive headcount to put out quality content that can be consumed in multiple markets. And I think that's where the industry is headed at. And using AI, you can have mass personalization, and adoption of technologies is where it's at.
And do you see a difference in, Europe, UK, US are all talking about personalization, but do you see the same conversations with clients in Asia? Is Asia still thinking about personalization, or it's too soon to ask?
I think they're on the journey. I think they're definitely on the journey. Today we had a lot of discussions with relevant organizations, a lot of the football clubs as well. And I think the first step is just making sure that they have the buy-in, they are aligned. That's the end of the journey. But making sure, as Jess was mentioning, covering the baselines is very important. You want to make sure that in terms of content personalization, you are producing content on a regular basis. You have a better understanding of your own audience. You're able to build segments you could tap into, and understanding who's doing what before you get to that sale. But getting that isn't the difficult task, right? Because the technology is out there. You can work with companies like Xplayer that can help you get there as well. But it's about making sure that your organization embraces this as a whole, and that's where you'll find real success.
Jess, over to you. How is Saudi Pro League thinking about positioning itself, with the Premier Leagues of the world, and where do you see them in the journey, and where do you see, Saudi Pro League making leaps and bounds in use of technology in that journey?
Well, so I cannot talk for the Premier League, and I can also say, it's a very different league, and there are many reasons for that. And I don't think the mission for the Saudi Pro League is to compare itself, but I think it's to create its own brand and create its own league. But one of the things we are doing in the SPL is that we've bought access to Catapult, Optadata, and Spotlight. So that makes sure that each club has access to tracking data for training, tracking data for matches, and event data from matches. And then we are basically redistributing all of this data to all clubs. So all clubs have access to this data, which it's not basic data, it's actually everything you could need and you could want in order to make analysis. And it's then our job to make sure that all the clubs have access and that they can use this on a daily basis. So that's the first step, to make sure all clubs are using this and have access to it. What you can then start to do is you can start to analyze this data centrally in order to understand the league. Because of course there's here, you know, the weather is different, the league is different, might be other types of players, there might be different tactics. And since the inflow of foreign players is relatively new, there's actually not a lot of knowledge on what is the intensity currently in the SPL, what is the tactical landscape, but we can use this centralized data to get that knowledge and thereby give the insights back to the clubs and help them become better. And then of course, in terms of scouting, we can also help the clubs quite a lot, I think, in utilizing the market, the European market, in finding better deals and buying more competitive players for the Saudi Pro League.
So, you know, I sit on the fan experience, content production, AI highlight content protection side of things. And, you know, in business school and in general, we hear the consumer is king. So what are the, you know, different ways that fan experiences have been shaping up in Asia? I know, you know, fantasy is a very big way of, you know, engaging fans, but what's your, you know, what are you hearing? What are you, you know, being asked for from clients for redefining fan experiences?
Well, I think, for example, in Asia, I've seen a lot of tools related like to predict predictors, head-to-head, this kind of gamification tools in order to engage with the younger generations. We were discussing, all of us, closed doors, about how the people is consuming football nowadays, and everyone is using a second screen.
Yeah.
So something that I've seen implemented in multiple sports is like the fan voting system. So if you are following, for example, the F1, you will see that you can scan a QR code and then you can vote for the driver of the day. And I think these kind of gamification tools are are kind of a trend in Asia, because if you follow mixed martial arts like One Championship, you have this kind of interactive tools where the people can feel that they are part of the competition itself, because they can compete with their friends. Like I said, this guy is gonna win, and finally it win it. It gives a lot of an opportunity as well for the sponsors to look after this kind of sponsoring activation. So I mean, I don't know, Coca-Cola can sponsor this kind of things, or McDonald's, and then out of the winners they can give them like money can buy experiences, merchandising, and so on. And again, you are collecting data of the fans on a more natural way. So I think these kind of things are working well in Asia, and I think it's a great example for Europe as well.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, you know, India is a mobile-first market, and cricket is it's a unique sport market, and Hotstar, which is the OTT platform on which cricket is broadcasted, actually introduced a vertical max view, because we're a mobile first market. People don't really consume content or cricket on TV or laptops, so that's the kind of innovation. So that's happening in our market from the consumption perspective. So yeah, it's a lot of things that are happening.
So if I can add something.
Sure.
So one of the things to make more fan engagement in the Saudi Pro League is to increase the quality of the matches, which I think is also really, really important, because you can do a lot of things, but you need an exciting match. You need a fast-paced game, you need high technical quality, you need high tactical quality. And that's why it's also so important to invest in the infrastructure of the clubs and invest in the technical development of the clubs. And that's one of the reasons why the Premier League is the most loved league. It's because it's extremely fast, and it's very fast-paced, and the demands are insane. So that's what we should also aim for in the Saudi Pro League, because then a lot more people will start to watch it. And that is fan engagement without using AI or anything.
Just a question on that. Just don't you think that's a relatively longer term plan where you get to that point where the games are very engaging?
If we will get to that point?
Yeah. Don't you think it's going to take a longer time to get that point, because you're talking about technical quality, which is, with AR or all of the other engagement tools, is pretty much something you can do overnight, but with technical quality,
yes,
this is a longer term project.
Yes, of course, because then you need to invest in the youth. You need to invest in the academies. You need to invest in the coaches, developing the young players, because it is the Saudi league, so there are Saudi players playing here. So you cannot buy just 11 foreigners. So you have to invest heavily in youth development and the clubs themselves. So yes, it will take some time, but I think there are, if you look at Japan, for example, have been extremely successful in this and have now one of the most competitive national teams in the world. So if you invest correctly, you will create this, and you have an amazing potential here in Saudi to reach the top 10 or the top 5 leagues in the world.
Superb. So, we are nearing the calendar year, end of the calendar year. We're heading into 2025. This is usually the time we are, planning what's next for 2025 before we go into our winter hibernation mode. So, I just want to ask you, what do you think? What is your view for personally, as at your companies, or for sport in general, or technology? And I know AI changes pace very fast. So let's not talk about specifically about AI, but what do you hope for 2025? What are you looking forward to when going into 2025?
So I think for me, it's a very important point that Jess also mentioned, is establishing those baselines with organizations where they are at that level in terms of their digital transformation journey, because as I explained, that's our core focus, right? Helping these organizations move from point A to point Z. Some of them, will have different timelines to get there, and some of them might actually start at a different level. But for us, it's achieving that minimum level of digital transformation, those structures that are in place, and also philosophically changing their approach towards data, towards commercialization, towards engagement, and hopefully, looking at the next 10 years, be in a position where you can then talk about the more advanced stuff of using AI and adapting it to various needs and all. Just getting that structure right is very, very important. And once you have a strong foundation, sky's the limit.
Jess, what plans for 2025?
Well, implementing the data science project, I think, is very practical, and making sure that the clubs will be using it and utilizing it. That's one thing for me, and then also that the clubs will start to use data a lot more in their scouting, because I think that's very important.
Is there a need? Is there a challenge that you foresee in terms of adoption of that infrastructure?
I mean, you can see in Europe that there are prominent clubs like Brentford and Brighton that have been extremely good at this, and you still see a lot of clubs that are not utilizing the actual edges that you can have from scouting with data. So I don't think it's not a Saudi Arabian problem. It's a basic problem within football that many directors and clubs might be slightly afraid of data or not sure how to use it. Where I think that you should be really reductionistic in your approach, and then make sure that you have quality sources. So that's one thing I'm hoping, that we can also help the Saudi clubs scout in a more data-driven way. Yeah.
What about you, Íñigo?
Well, I look forward to seeing the sport organizations grow. I think that's key for the industry. So that's the reason why we are all here today in a sport industry event. So if the sport organizations keep growing, they will be hiring more people, more professionals. They will be investing more in technology, because now I think one of the biggest challenges for them is that they really see the value of investing in technology and implementing these kind of technologies. But the thing is that they have very lean teams, so they have limited bandwidth, they have limited resources to spend in these kind of projects. So I think that's part of our work as well, to offer like more affordable projects for them to start developing these initiatives. But I think at the end of the day, all of us will be benefited if the sport industry keeps growing. So I think that would be my wish list for next year, I would say.
Yeah, for me, I think 2024 was great. I think we built the framework for a lot of partnerships, a lot of projects that I think is going to mature in 2025. Jess was talking about helping clubs scout better players from a professional perspective. I think everything that we worked for in 2024 is going to help clubs scout players from the amateur space. So I'm very excited for 2025. We've got a lot of projects in the pipeline, and can't wait for it to start.
All right, thank you. We have 3 minutes left, so maybe, you know, we can take a couple of questions from the audience. What do you think about blockchain?
Want to take that one?
Want
Shahrukh?
me to take it, or you want Jess to take it? Jess is looking at me. I think that blockchain as a whole, it's widely used technology. The implications are vast. We've seen that in some areas with sports. Honestly, personally, I'm not too sure how to apply this in like every aspect of the sports cycle. So where, for example, if you talk about sports analysis, if you're talking about digital transformation, the applications are there. And we've also seen some initial, let's not use the word controversies, but there are some teething issues with the technology. There are a lot of concerns regarding it as well. We've seen some use cases not working out. So I think it needs to be adopted, it needs to be studied more, and hopefully we can see more successful case studies for it. That's just my take.
In our case, we work a lot in fan engagement, but we are not working with blockchain technology, so I don't feel comfortable answering this question.
I think the usage of blockchain in sports has happened, and I think it's going to happen more in the next few years. I think IP ownership of, in our case, player profiles is something that we are working on. So we are integrating with different blockchain technologies that would help you own a piece of the next big talent. So and we're also having tokens within the app that you can own later on. So a lot of things are happening with blockchain. It's not something to see if it's working or it's not. There's a lot of billion companies that work in that domain, and I think sports is just one of those industries that applying blockchain is just going to be a must.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Sure.
Yeah, so what the SPL has done is to sign a contract with Catapult and Sportlight and Opta. So all clubs have received or are in the process of receiving Catapult wearables in order to have the newest technology in terms of tracking data in daily training. And then the same for Match Tracker, Focus, and Hub, which is basically an analyst tool. And then Sportlight, which is tracking data from matches. And so right now, the clubs have received portals or access to these software companies' own portals. But what we're working on is creating our own, basically Power BI central hub, where all clubs can just go in and access all of that data at one place. And this is also something SPL is paying for, so that the clubs will always have access to this. But then, of course, there's also the other side of it, which is that we then can analyze this data and create insights with that data. But we're still just in the implementation and making sure that all clubs have the technology and all clubs are using it, helping them utilize it. So there's a team of directors where I'm one of them, but there's also a director of fitness, one in rehab, one in technical development, and we're all advising and helping, mentoring clubs in order to get to the next level of utilizing this technology. And of course, some clubs, they already have experts and are very, very proficient in it and might not need as much, where other clubs might need a lot. But I think even the biggest club should be very interested in the smallest clubs being very up to date, because that will increase the level of performance, that will increase the competitiveness, and it might even develop players in the small clubs that the big clubs can buy, right? So I think it's a great project that's kind of democratizing technology within the league. Yeah. Yes, and I'm sure that these things will develop over time, and it will become more and more integrated. I've only been here for 2.5 months, so the clubs also have to get used to, receiving emails from me, and I'm establishing, a good network with the analyst and the data scientist in the clubs. And, it's a slow process, but I think over time, it will benefit the league a lot.
All right, thank you so much. I think we're up for time. Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure, and it was I hope, fruitful discussion for all of you, and at least it was for me. That's it, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.